Hello everyone and welcome to my armory update for Airsoft. We are going to be looking at all of the guns that I currently have right now. Even though that some of them are up for sale, we will be looking at all of the ones that I own and have played with, and I'll give you a little bit of background, what's inside, as well as my opinion on the builds in general. First up is going to be my D-Boys PDW with a Kythera inside. I bought this gun secondhand and I installed the speed trigger onto there. This is if not one of the quietest guns I own other than my sniper rifle. With the suppressor on it, it is amazing, to say the least. Inside is a Max Pro ME hop-up unit. In the videos right now, there's a brass barrel as well as the stock grip, but I've since replaced those with a PTS EPG grip, I believe is what it's called, and a Prometheus inner barrel with a, I believe, modified flat hop bucking. It shoots straight, shoots amazing, really fun gun to use. Has that nice realistic trigger pull. And I usually run it with this setup, which is the Navarrete suppressor with a lighter R installed inside of it, with the rest filled with foam, a Streamlight TLR1 HL, a Heihachi T1 replica red dot with a lens protector on the front of it, and it takes M4 mags, which is nice, has a folding stock, which is also nice, and then usually run the rubber chicken, which I'm not sure if you can see entirely in the video, but it is a very fun gun. Next up is going to be my Strike Industries not PDW. It has a PDW stock, but it's the SBR length M4 by EMG and Strike Industries. I bought it purely because of the red accents that were already installed on it. Saved me a lot of money in buying the mag release here, pins here, forward assist, mag release, all of those things in red. So it helped me out a lot there. Inside is a Polar Star Fusion engine by Amped. It is the purple nozzle, and it's the green edition. So it's that like lime green, like toxic green. Has a nice green line coming out of it as well. And then up front is a Max ME Polar Star hop-up unit with right now it's a PDI 601 barrel, but I'm getting a R-hopped 603 Prometheus barrel shipped to me right now, which is going to be installed into there. The trigger is a Max trigger. It does have the trigger spring inside of it, which, why I'm telling you this, later on in the other guns, some of them do not have trigger springs in it. This one does, but it's a very light trigger spring, so it's still a very light trigger pull. I prefer the Fusion engines just because they have the clickiness of the trigger, so you know when you're actually actuating the firing action. It also looks like it has the stock Strike Industries grip, but it's actually a slim one that I purchased and threw on there as well. And then up top I have a replica, I believe it's an SRO, Trijicon SRO. It's definitely not a real one. Again, with lens protectors on both the front and the back, because I had a Real Steel Romeo 5 that got shot out in the back, not the front, unfortunately. On the front of this thing, I usually either run my Olight Odin, my Olight Valkyrie LEP, or my Streamlight TLR1. It's really a toss-up depending on what I'm running on in my other guns as well. The next gun we'll be talking about is my Crytek Rex 7 by Crytek and EMG. I had originally won this gun in a BOA with the carbine length upper, which is why the upper and lower are different colors, because I had since bought the SPR length in the upper because I almost primarily only play CQB fields, so having a carbine length rifle was not beneficial to me. But I kind of dig the tan and black, or black and tan color scheme going on. On the back, it's a Magpul stock. Inside is another Polar Star Fusion engine. This one just still also has the trigger spring in it, but it's a very, very heavy one. So the trigger pull is a little bit heavier and a little bit harder to actuate, but it's still pretty easy with the clickiness of the Fusion engine itself. There's a black max mag release, a Prometheus 603 inner barrel, and a regular Max Pro ME hop-up unit. Up front, I have the BCM rail covers, as well as a SEMA M-Lock grip, which is the rubberized one. On the front, there's going to be a EMG suppressor, which I almost all the time take it off to put on either my Nover suppressor with tracer inside, my later BT, or my Bifrost, depending on how I'm feeling and what kind of game's going on. Up top, I usually run my Olight Valkyrie LEP or my Streamlight TLR1, which you can see in the video here. And then I also have a Feyachi T1 replica, but this one's a little bit of a nicer one. Has the auto off, and it actually has probably the clearest dot out of all of them. And then it also has the EMG Strike Industries grip that I actually took off of the Strike Industries build and put onto this build. Next up is a favorite of mine. It is a SEMA 9mm AR. It takes MP5 mags. It has a Fusion engine with a blue nozzle. Max Sport hop-up unit, because the feeding tube that feeds the mags up to the hop-up unit would not work with the Pro. And then it also has a PDI 601 inner barrel to get a little bit more power coming out of the barrel and get up to field limits. Front is a couple BCM rail covers that I cut down to fit onto the rail segment, a real Strike Industries M-Lock hand stop, and then up top right now pictured is a red dot as well as a Streamlight TLR1 and lighter BT. On the inside, this gun features a 4590 selector, which I had to grind down the stock selector to enable the functionality of the selector, because the original selector that came with the Fusion engine is meant for a 90-180 selector switch, which would only give me semi. This way it still actually works. The 45 is still semi, and as well as safe as semi, and then the full auto is full auto. This also has a max adjustable trigger, but this one does not have the trigger spring on the inside, so the trigger pull is very, very, very light. And then on the bottom there is a PTS Magpul pistol grip that houses the line coming out of the bottom. And on the back is a SEMA stock, but it kind of looks like a PTS stock. And then this gun is very, very fun to play with. It's different than an M4, only slightly, but it still has the fun times of running MP5 mags versus M4 mags. Next up is a spicy build of mine. This is my Elite Force MP7 with a Polar Star jack on the inside. Inside as well as a modified flat hop bucking with a Prometheus 603 inner barrel. This is one of my favorite guns to run just because it is very, very compact, and it's very, very different from an M4, MP5, AK, and all of the more common guns that you see on the field, while still having an immense amount of range. My fields I usually play with are CQB, but I can still shoot across the field pretty easily with this thing. And usually at like 80 PSI, I'm hitting usually 350 to 360 FPS. Up top, I'm running a Feyachi T1 replica, a bunch of rail covers I printed off that are glow in the dark, so in night games or whenever we have black light games, they kind of light up a little bit more. On the side is a TLR1, but I have since moved on to the Olight Valkyrie, just because the button placement is a little bit easier when you're shouldering the rifle. And then up front, I usually run the Novice suppressor with the lighter R inside, just because it makes this gun very, very, very quiet. The final rifle we're going to be talking about is my JG Bar 10 that I also bought secondhand, that has a Wolverine bolt in it. And then it also has an Action Army hop-up unit and a tight bore inner barrel that I do not know the brand of, just because I bought it secondhand and I see that it's not a standard brass barrel. This gun is so much fun to play with. So quiet. The trigger pulls are nothing because it has a speed trigger on it, as well as not having a sear to break off to fire a spring powered gun. The racking of the bolt is very, very easy, just because there's no spring you're pulling. You're essentially just pulling the weight of the bolt itself back and forth. You can straight pull it by just having it open and then going back and forth really quick to load the next BB, essentially. I usually run the Novice suppressor on the front. If it's outdoor, I usually fill the rest of the suppressor up with foam. If it's inside, then I usually run it with the tracer inside of there. And up top is a 4 to 8 times scope, I believe. If not, I believe it's a 3 to 7. It's one of the two. It's illuminated. It's great. It's a great rifle. So much fun to use. I've used it indoor a few times, and it is a joy. You're not competitive at all, but it's a joy to use inside, just because you kind of have to think totally differently than if you were running an M4 or a pistol or an MP5 or something that has the ability to go a little bit faster than a bolt action rifle. Alright, now we're getting into the pistols. We're going to start with all my high kappas. The first one that we're going to be talking about is my most recent build, which is a 4.3 with a Gunsmith Bros protector slide on top in blue, an AM steel outer barrel, a speed trigger, AM grip screws, AM hop-up unit, 9-ball, I believe it's a 603 inner barrel, a Lalax wide use bucking, edge, standard piston, edge, blowback unit, AM trigger bar, 120 spring and a hammer spring, and then the AM bear short strokes. Oh, and then the AIP gas pedal, I guess you could call it, and then a AM magwell in gold. This gun has gone over quite the extensive makeover since filming this. Now it has a Kappa Customs grip that's been laser engraved in blue, so it has like a diamond pattern on it. And then I replaced the frame with a Gunsmith Bros frame in blue as well. So this gun is basically all blue now, and I've used the parts that I got from building it out and basically rebuilt a regular 4.3 and then threw a few custom parts in there as well. The gun runs beautifully on green gas. It's super accurate. It's so much fun to use. It's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, high kappa at the moment. And overall, it's just a fantastic and compact pistol. So we'll be real quick about this one because I only have a little bit of footage on it since I ended up selling it right after filming this. It's a Army Armament R609 with on an AM frame with a black speed trigger, stippled grip, and then the Army Armament magwell. It's a super chunky slide, so whenever using green gas, it kicks like a mule just because there's a lot of weight being whipped backwards. It was a lot of fun to build. It ran amazing on green gas, and overall it's just a really, really fun gun to use, and didn't take much modifying to make it work on the AM frame, which I know some slides you have to modify quite a bit. This is my all gold with a hint of black because of the grip, and I don't want to spend $400 on a frame and a grip to make it all gold. So this is about as gold as it's going to get. It runs fine, so I'm not going to be worried about switching out the frame and the grip. It has a AM Norris slide up top, the AM hexagonal outer barrel. Inside is a AM pop-up unit with AM guide rod, AM guide rod plug, Luck Kappa custom, short strokes, 9-ball inner barrel. I believe it's a maple leaf bucking, speed trigger, AM slide stop, AM safeties, AM grip safety, AM magwell, cow gold grip screws, AIP gold mag release, and I believe it's a 140 recoil spring, and then the cow regular kit in the hammer springs. And then inside, the nozzle is AM, and then the blowback unit is also an AM edge. So they're both, it's the blue standard AM edge nozzle, I believe it's called, and then the BBU version 2 or 3, I think it's 3, blowback unit, and then a stippled grip. It's a very, very fun gun, very pretty gun. Runs alright on green gas. I usually run with HPA when I'm running it, but it runs on green gas, but not as efficient as some of the other high kappas that I have, which I think is a culprit of the amount of recoil, the percentage of the recoil spring, and the amount of short strokes that are on it, which, you know, has to chug along to pump out a lot of gas just to recoil itself. Next up is going to be my first high kappa I've ever built, which was an infinity slide, which I found on HopUp, which was discontinued for a while, so it was kind of a cool find, and I really liked the patterning on it, so I ended up buying it through a steel, or not a steel, it's just a regular gold AM outer barrel. Has the same barrel setup as every other high kappa, which is the AM setup with 9-ball inner barrel, and then maple leaf bucking, AM BBU, AM nozzle, AM hammer, cow regular spring, 140 recoil spring, speed trigger, army armament slide stop, just because it came in silver, so I threw that on there. I believe there are Airsoft Masterpiece grip screws and an AIP mag release, and then the Lilac Slim Type R grip, and then a slide racker up on the instead of the rear sight, which I despise, and I have rear sights in the mail right now to replace that because I enjoy aiming my gun, not just kind of shooting and hoping it goes places. But this was the first high kappa that started it all. Very, very fun gun. Short stroke to crap. Shoot straight. Snappy. Cool slide, which gets a lot of looks. It's not something you see around often, just because it's how of the age of it. But yeah, it is a very, very fun gun to use. This next gun was quite a surprise for me when I ordered it, because I thought that because it was a Lancer Tactical, that was going to be crap, but I was actually very surprised with the performance of this gun. This is the Lancer Tactical 4.3 Strike, but it's really realistically a 3.8, because they basically took a 4.3 and then shrunk it to about 80% the size of a 4.3. So the grip is a little bit smaller, the slide smaller, the frame smaller. It's quite a compact like kappa. I know this because I ordered a 4.3 length inner barrel, and it ended up sticking out of the outer barrel by probably close to 6 to 7 millimeters, which once I put the thread adapter on there to convert it to 14 millimeter negative clockwise threads, it was fine. But when I first ordered it, I was thinking that this was a little bit smaller than what normally is a 4.3 high kappa. Inside, it's totally stock, excluding the grip screws, which are AIP silver ones. The barrel and bucking is a Unicorn Airsoft barrel and bucking. The grip safe or not the grip safeties, the manual safeties are off of a gold match that I Sharpied black a long time ago, just because the safeties actually broke when I was trying to take it apart, which was totally my fault, not the fault of the gun. On the bottom is a AM purple 02 magwell. But this is a very, very good gun for the price point, which was, I think, around 180. And it is very snappy, very, very snappy. Since I put the Cow recoils, I think it's I forget what the name of it is. It's some weird name, but it's a recoil spring by them that I threw in there. And because it's shorter than a 4.3, it doesn't need to be short stroke because the coils on the spring basically short strokes the gun for you. This gun probably runs the best on green gas mags of all my high kappas. Very, very hard kicking and very, very efficient on green gas. This gun features quite a bit of premium on it, such as the threaded outer barrel that comes stock on it, the nice metal hop-up unit, and it also has a stippling or a stipple on the grip, which is a welcome surprise. And it runs on regular TM high kappa mags and most, if not all, of the other high kappa mags. They stick out a little bit, but that's just because of how small this gun is. The next high kappa that we're going to be looking at is going to be my Speed QB slide from La Kappa Customs build that I did. The frame is a R901 by Army Armament, which I took a Dremel to put a rail on. It's not pretty, but when you have a flashlight on it, no one sees it, so it's fine. The slide stop is off of I believe a gold match, if I'm not mistaken. It has a speed trigger in it, the Army Armament grip, AM, I forget what the name of it is, but that's the magwell that's on it, and then AIP 120 hammer spring, and then inside of the gun itself is a 110 recoil spring, 5 La Kappa Custom short strokes, AM hop up, AM outer barrel, AM blowback unit, AM nozzle, 9-ball inner barrel. Or no, it's not a 9-ball. It is a maple leaf inner barrel. And then a La Kappa Customs flat hop bucking, which I've had about 4 of them, and only one of them really work really well. So I just have 3 of them lying around in boxes, but this one shoots super, super straight. So if you get one that works, shoots amazing. This gun is insanely short stroked, as you can probably see, and the recoil on it is virtually nothing, and the reset time is also virtually nothing because the slide quite literally only has to move maybe an inch before coming back and filling or loading the next BB. I put it on this frame because this frame is amazing. It's super snappy. The trigger pull is very, very crisp and very light. I don't know what Army Armament did, but their frames and their lowers are very, very good. I've since replaced the pistol grip, but not the frame still stays, but I replaced the pistol grip with a VGX1 by Bunai Airsoft, a Bunai, and a red AM, I guess you could call it just like a normal magwell. It's not fancy at all, but now it's just red all over and then silver frame and then a hint of gold every once in a while. Not the prettiest gun I've ever built, but it is probably the best performing on HPA of all of the pistols that I own, and sometimes even outshoot some of my rifles because of how nice the flat hop is in there and the amount of range that I get out of BBs. Now we're going to get into the weirder guns that I have. And to start off with, this is my very fun revolver. It has 6 shots in it, takes green gas, only shoots about 150 FPS. But it's a revolver, so it's cool. It's fun to run around with. You can act like you're a cowboy. And hopefully you hit someone in those 6 shots, because if you don't, then you have to sit there for about 2 minutes trying to finagle new shells into the cylinder, and then go out and find someone, and hopefully they feel it, because you're not shooting high enough for some people with like plate carriers to feel it. But it only cost like $50, so I'm not expecting the world out of it. It's just more of a wall hanger and a fun gun to use on occasion. Next up is my small 1911. This is by Army Armament, and kind of like the revolver, it's not a serious gun. It holds much more than a revolver, and it runs on green gas, and it has blowback, but it's not a viable gun for a full game of Airsoft. This gun has virtually no range, still shoots about 280 to 300 FPS with a .2, but it's just not very usable other than one, clearing a room, or having it as your ankle gun, which I usually run it in a little fanny pack or in my pocket or something like that, just in case. And sometimes it's fun just to take it out and think that I'm going to get killed with it, and then usually get killed trying to get a kill with it. But it's all good because it's a very fun gun to use. Now let's talk about Glocks. All of the Glocks. I currently own 4, have 1 in the mail. But starting off, we're going to be talking about my JDG P80, which is a $100 Glock from Taiwan Gun that I ordered, and I believe it's by Double Eagle. And this thing is kind of similar in the aspect of the Lancer, where you get a lot of premium features for the price, such as having an arm R-cut slide. So on top, you can loosen 2 screws, take the plate off, and mount an RMR directly to the sight itself. I believe it also comes with suppressor sights that you can replace, which is really, really nice. And it is, I would say, about 40% TM compatible. The blowback unit and nozzle are definitely not TM, but the hop-up unit and obviously the barrel and bucking are all TM compatible, as well as the trigger, which I had replaced with a Action Army Glock or AAP01 trigger, but it works just the same in there. I've also put a lighter trigger spring in there, so the trigger pulls are very nice, very light, very crisp. This gun is fairly sluggish on S-Mags, just because it's just not very good, but it's still very fun to use. I usually run on HPA like I run most of my handguns, but when I'm running green gas, I either run this or I run the Sailing Arms one, which you'll see later in this video, or my Elite Force Glock, which I have fully built, which is also very, very good. But for the price point, this is probably the best bang for your buck Glock 17 that you can get, and the stippling and the officially licensed P80 furniture is also very, very nice to have on there. Next up, we're going to be talking about my Sailing Arms Glock that I ordered off of Taiwan Gun as well. This has the utility slide. It's not Elite Force, and it's not TM. I forget the brand on it. I believe it's EMG makes it. It's EMG Sailing Arms utility slide Glock 17 in a sense. Comes with a threaded outer barrel, which is nice. Comes with the RMR plate, which is also nice. This gun is probably the best gun or best Glock that I own that runs on green gas, other than my Elite Force one. And it is probably my go-to to run as specifically a secondary, just because it runs well on all of the Glock mags that I have, and I have 3 they're all different brands, and this gun runs the best on all of them. Whereas like the Elite Force runs better on the Elite Force mags, the P80 runs better on the P80 mags. This gun runs good on all of the mags. Very snappy, very fun gun to run around with. Sometimes I run it with HPA, but most of the time I'm running it with green gas mags and running it as a secondary. But sometimes on lower population games, I usually run the green gas mags just because 100 rounds will last me the entire game if I only see one person every couple minutes. Next up is going to be the Elite Force, I believe it's Gen 4 Glock 17 that I own with a Salient Arms slide kit that I bought off of Evike. I only bought the slide kit just because it came with a threaded barrel. Later on learning that I could have just bought the threaded barrel by itself, but the slide was kind of cool, so I don't hate it. It is also RMR cut, which I have a fake Trijicon RMR replica up top. Works just fine. Has a piece of Lexan on the front to protect it from BB hits. On the bottom is a speed trigger that they make for the Glock, apparently, that is also really fun, really nice. Very nice trigger pull. You can only get so crispy with a Glock trigger, unfortunately. It's nothing matching a high Kappa or a 1911, but I've gotten it good enough to where it's still very fun to use. Inside is the stock pop-up unit, but it has a maple leaf inner barrel and a maple leaf bucking. This gun I usually run on HPA. This is my Gucci Glock. It runs beautifully on green gas as well, but I probably won't run this at Milsims just because I like the shininess of it and I don't want to drop it in some mud and then turn it brown, essentially. But overall, the nicest Glock that I own currently and the most fun to use. Finally, for the Glock mag taking pistols is going to be my AAP01, which doesn't look like a normal AAP01. This features the CTM lower as well as the CTM Fuku 2 cut upper. That's aluminum, very lightweight, as well as the CTM super lightweight piston, charging handle, and I believe the nozzle is just the stock AAP nozzle. And then the Loki TDC hop-up unit and a 9-ball, no, not a 9-ball, it's a 9-ball, 9-ball inner barrel with a maple leaf bucking, and then a CTM trigger, which is very crispy and very nice. The only thing I'm missing on it is a magwell and a magazine release, and then this thing will be essentially a fully built from the ground up AAP01 minus some of the screws and the chassis, the inner chassis housing, and the trigger bar. I believe that's it. I think everything else is aftermarket. This gun is phenomenal. Shoots BBs super far. I usually run 2.8s in it, and it shoots dead straight basically anywhere I go, even if there is a little bit of wood. There's only so much you can do to compensate for wind variables, but in a no wind environment, this thing shoots super straight, super far, outranges all of my pistols, which it most obviously should because it has a much longer inner barrel than all of those, but the TDC hop up also helps quite a bit. Next up is my Army Armament 1911, which this thing was about $70, so it's not a super expensive 1911, but it is a quite durable and quite heavy feeling, and it's all metal, so it feels pretty good for $70. Doesn't kick super hard, the slide doesn't cycle super fast. It does have a threaded barrel, which is nice, and it takes standard TM 1911 mags, which is also really nice. And it seems like if it's anything like the Army Armament High Kappas, then most of the time it's going to be TM compatible inside of there. Similar to the WE 1911, I put a couple rounds through it on a full mag, and then put it back in the box with a little big ass in it to store it to make sure it doesn't leak and stays pressurized in there. And then on the front, it's just I believe it's a Vulcan adapter that I just screwed on there to protect the threads, which is why it kind of looks scratched up. But the gun itself is quite literally brand new, and I essentially performed a quality assurance test on it to make sure it worked. Next up is my WE 1911 or M45A2, A3, A1, one of the two. I think it's A3. This gun is very fun. Haven't used it in a game yet. I got in the mail probably about a week ago. Ran one mag through it and then threw it in the box. It's feels nice. It's WE, so I'm not expecting the world, but I'm also not expecting it to break after 30 shots like some other handguns and some other airsoft pistols that are out there. But yeah, it feels nice. It has a threaded barrel, which is also really nice. Unfortunately, it can't take my other 1911 mag because this one is a little bit fatter, and it's almost like it's proprietary looking in a sense. But I mean, if you had a few of these mags and just ran with green gas mags, it'd probably be a joy to run around with as a primary. It kicks quite good. The accuracy I cannot attest to because I haven't put a single round through it. I just essentially filled up a mag, shot a few times to make sure it was working, nothing was leaking, and then back in the box it went. Finally, we're going to be talking about my M9, my KGW CO2 M9. This thing is hardest kicking gun that I have, pistol wise, just because it's CO2 for one, and two, the slide isn't super light. But it is a very nice trigger pull, shoot straight. The internals are pretty nice on it. What else is there to say? It's a very solid M9. It has a rail on it, has a threaded barrel, so you can throw your suppressors or tracer on there, and then throw your flashlight on the bottom. It's just a really fun gun. I bought it probably close to a year ago, and I initially was using it as just distinctly a secondary, and then after I learned that I don't need to have 1,000 rounds on me for a 15-minute game of Airsoft, I started to run it as a primary with just the 4 CO2 mags, and it was a blast, no pun intended, to shoot. But yeah, it's a $135, I believe, on Taiwan gun, and the mags are $35 to $40 usually. But the CO2 definitely makes it kick quite a bit, and it's a very fun gun to use. So yeah. So other than the guns that we went through today, I do have another AAPO one in the mail that I plan on doing a carbine kit for. I plan on doing the SRU one just because it's a little bit cheaper and it looks a little bit more like an MPX than some of the other carbine kits that kind of look a little funky. And then I also have a standard 4.3 because I had replaced that 4.3 with the protector slide frame and all of that stuff. So I also have that as well. That's just a standard 4.3 TM High Kappa that I threw some spare parts in, like a cow hammer and strut, a AM trigger, Unisoft gold grip safety, and then an AM barrel setup that I had lying around and threw it in there. But other than that, it's just a plastic slide looking stock TM High Kappa. But I want to thank you guys for watching. If you made it all the way through, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more gameplay, there's a ton of videos on my channel that have basically gameplay from all of these guns, and a few others that I don't own anymore. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.